It's the Regular Expressions podcast. Join Noah Heldman and Ben Griswold as they talk about technology, consulting, and life. In episode 24, Noah and Ben compare AI's growth and lack of regulation with social media and the internet, and suggest some ways we might improve things this time around. It's Rachel, and I'm a big fan of this approach. Sensible Regulation was the name of my high school band.
I've been seeing a lot, Noah, about how leaders seem to be responsible for strategies around AI, how they're going to bring them into their organizations, how they can move quickly, but also responsibly. And it really got me thinking how it's not only with our organizations, but it's our governments, our big tech companies, whether or not they're providing the appropriate guidance, the guardrails on how we should be leveraging AI throughout. That's not only in organizations, but also in home. And it made me think of when my kids were growing up, their use of devices. They had the internet in their hand. They had apps in their hands. And it continues to come up how this is an anxious generation. Right? They have the addictions, right? I read recently on one of my LinkedIn posts, somebody commented about the anxiety and some of the concerns that came up because his daughter started doing that comparison between she and others. And there's always bullying and there's various other things. And how do you, as a parent, if we were to do it all again, what would we change? Would we put down our own rules for the child? Would we have our own awareness sessions? Would we teach them what we believe is responsible usage for working the internet, for using devices? I'd love to be able to do it again. I'd love to be able to use my mulligan, but as I recognize what's happening today is we haven't even solved that problem with social media or device usage. I mean, it's still a thing, doom scrolling. We still have heads of Meta, going in front of Congress and talking through like, oh, are we in fact manipulating people, enticing them and whatnot, controlling their data, etc. So we haven't really approached that hurdle yet. How do we handle social media? How do we handle the use of our devices? Never mind, how should we now or later start managing our use of AI chat specifically, whether you're a child or using more powerful tools within organization. So I was prompted to write a quick post about that on LinkedIn. I was glad to see the traction because it's kind of top of mind. And I liked how it wasn't all about the leaders' responsibilities to provide, again, that strategy and the guardrails for their people. It's really, and everyone needs to be aware and everyone needs to think through how can they use AI safely, healthily, responsibly. What do you think?
I think the internet was wide open initially because that is its nature. It is a way to connect computers all over the world. There were some logical issues with that early on that made it challenging to have a fast and reliable connection to everywhere. But it was in all of these large organizations' best interests to focus all their energy on that first. Regulation be damned, and come back and attempt to clean it up and fix it later. I think we saw the same thing happen with devices and with social media. As you said, it was all about just get people on board as quickly as possible and ignore the fact that you were welcoming just as many bad actors and creating this environment of hatred online and doom scrolling and addiction, absolutely addiction to these platforms. So I hear where you're coming from, and I do think it is it's incredibly challenging because AI is moving faster than either of those things did, significantly faster. You still have all of the power contained in a few big technology players. They're tied into the government. The government in general, I'm making some big generalizations here, doesn't understand the nature and capability of this technology. And honestly, the big tech companies don't understand the internals of AI and cannot predict the speed with which it might get to AGI or get to a point where all of these things are much harder to regulate. So, like a governmental structure where we might rely on federal, state, or local or hyper-local types of things, I think the best thing we can do to protect is protect our own usage and our immediate family's usage, find good patterns, recommend those, and have that expand out into higher levels. And that's easier said than done. And I've certainly been someone who was just interested in maximizing and trying out as much stuff as I could. I think I mentioned to you I installed the OpenClaw tool and started the process of installing and got really scared really fast and just I did a full uninstall, clean out the computer, make sure there were no vestiges because I just couldn't trust it. That is too much power to give over. It would be like giving just anyone in the world access to your email or to your social media accounts and just hoping for the best. So I think that's where we have a really good opportunity is to model some good patterns and some responsible usage. And right now, maybe that is just as simple as good context and constraints and guidelines that you give to the tools you use and education in understanding. If you ask it, hey, here's my stock portfolio, here's my bank account info, here's my social security number, help me do my taxes, and what do you think I should look out for? Like anything else, you shouldn't just trust your sensitive data because AI says you should for whatever reason. So it's complicated, but I think that's my first thought on your question.
Yes, it's complicated. I think where the complication lies is that we don't really have a trusted source to turn to on how to use these tools responsibly. I mean, even in the news today, right? There's major tech company just doing as the government says, right? Like it isn't about how they choose to do things responsibly. It's based on, it seems, money allowing things to happen that might not be in everybody's best interest. And not to get political here at all, but there you can observe and you see patterns, and then it's like, okay, you can't really turn here at least for some people, might not want to turn there to get the guidance that's needed in-house. So maybe you start talking to your friends and you say, how do you handle this in your household? What are you doing with AI that is beneficial? Oh, I'm doing this. And then perhaps your friend says, well, that's remarkably stupid. You are, like Noah said, giving up your social security number or what have you. They having those conversations on the usage, which is still a little bit scary. Like some folks don't want to admit that they're using them at all for writing, for research, etc. So you're opening this up to people in your network to ask for, their guidance, their thoughts. Oh, maybe we need to get over that hump first and just say, yes, everybody's using it. Now, what are you doing to make sure that you're in control of the tools rather than the tools being in control of you? Because this is best for our kids, but also for ourselves.
I have two things that are kind of in conflict in my head from things I've read. One is somewhere I read that it's a pretty tiny percentage of the world that has ever used AI. And that is obviously we're here in the United States, and we're in technology. We're very exposed to it just based on the nature of what we do. So there's that side of it. There's another side, which is I'm surprised that most of the people we talk to, and maybe we're just in that subset, use AI much more than I expected they did. We've worked with a lot of different clients. We've asked them, what is your usage of AI within the company and personally? And it is a remarkably high percentage of people that are using it for their core work on a daily basis. These are senior executives in many cases. And I think that's great, but it means that responsibility, that awareness is even more important, because a lot of people are just leaning into it head first. Yeah, let's see what it can do. And I have no doubt that people have exposed information that they probably shouldn't have, and are training models on information that may not be at the trade secret level for their company, but it's probably substantially important to how they run on a day-to-day basis. So it's a tiny percentage, but it's also of the people who are using it, they're all in is the sense I get. And that's absolutely the case for me, but I'm trying to be as responsible as I can. I think about, okay, if I drop this file into ChatGPT or into Claude, what am I giving to it? What might it use it for? And is it truly private, or is it just another piece of the puzzle that's going to train its data sets on? I don't know. So I err on the side of, better not put that information out there just in case. And then with these OpenClaw type, more autonomous agents that you're just giving a wider berth to go and do stuff on your behalf, the likelihood of that being problematic goes way, way up. So that's why I uninstalled that.
Makes sense. Yeah, I liked your point about how not everyone in the world has internet. Not everybody in the world has quick internet. Not everybody in the world has access to, basic AI chat applications for sure. Then you look at the US, and it probably is really skewed towards, California on who has really, dived into it a lot. So we are in an interesting spot on the curve, which makes me think even more that if we are going to figure out how best to practice AI responsibly, perhaps it's on us, like looking right at you, Noah. I mean, I'm not sure that we should be looking for answers for anybody. We should be coming up with, this is what we feel comfortable with, and this is what we're going to make sure our friends and families are doing to support each other. It's really easy to where do we get these answers? Somebody tell us. It didn't work out with devices. It didn't work out with internet or social media use. So I just think, I've got to sit with this and come up with what the right plan is for me and my family. I can tell you a lot of it right now is just right out in the open. Let's talk about what you're doing. It's show my kids what I'm doing, and making sure that at least it's known what I want to do with AI, and hopefully it shapes what they will want to do and how they'll want to do it.
That's right. Yeah. And I do have one son who is actively vibe coding. So that has some potentially rough edges to it. And I know they both use it for, and they're both in college. So they both use it for general research when it's permitted, but they really, both of them grew up in a pretty manual research environment. So I think they just were the age where they had gotten through those core critical thinking skills, creative writing, problem set analysis, enough that they had done enough for their brains to build that foundation. Now, I would love, as they continue through college, for that to continue to grow and for those critical thinking skills to be absolutely the most important. And I feel like they have that, but that's constantly going to be this thing, whether it would be like, oh, here's this TikTok, what are they called? I'm showing my age. Reel? No, was it a reel? I don't know. A TikTok movie. Or a YouTube short. Hey, I got that one right. Something that wants to draw your attention.
Let's do it.
And that is something they deal with. There's no doubt. There is some level of addiction, but there's also some awareness, and they get their stuff done. They're doing their schoolwork. They have a social life. They're in sports communities. So I feel like they're not just completely sucked into social media and AI driven lifestyle. They're humans still. But as people grow up with this as the norm, where Google is now old school and it's just, oh, I want to be able to ask a question with my voice and my phone tells me what to do. And I need to solve this problem. So yeah, AI solve it for me. That's much more concerning. And I put a lot of pressure on the educational system to figure out how to manage this, just to keep our kids thinking critically as this moves forward. And then, yeah, it's up to the parents, who I hope continue to see that their role in this is absolutely critical. And I think, I'm an optimist, as we've discussed before, but I would not expect this regulation to happen nearly as quickly as it needs to. I think things will go more sideways, and we will be reactive before there are reasonable and effective regulations in place. We had a much longer window with the internet, slightly shorter with social media, and I think much shorter now. So we can't possibly react fast enough. And I worry that even knowing that, we'll still be slower than we should be.
I'm glad you mentioned education system. Right? There's such a divide even there, right? Thinking about universities and colleges, and do you use it? Are you allowed to use AI or not? Are we going to monitor your papers and supposedly determine whether or not you've used AI to generate this paper? I think the jury's still out on how if there's going to be something that's cross university regulation or not around usage. But I would like to think that that's a great place to turn when you're trying to establish what you'd like to allow your kids or not let your kids do, maybe in high school, elementary, at home, etc. So we'll see there for sure. These are everyday things that I don't think we're thinking about enough. I feel that it's really easy to say responsible use, safe usage, but to really sit back and think about that and compare it against what's happened historically with technology, this is a great time just to pause and think it through.
So who do we have to talk to make sure that happens? It all comes down to these companies, and I think more now than ever, the voice of the individual consumer at scale is the thing that will drive change. So I'd love to be able to point to some resources that people can go to if this is an issue that they want to somehow influence as an individual beyond just their household or their small community. So maybe we'll find some resources and see if we can drop them in the description.
Maybe Yeah, maybe we will. And maybe we'll be able to come up with our own, and perhaps that's something we can share on a later call.
Absolutely. Hey, I happened to multitask with AI while we were talking here, and I just asked it, what's the AI usage look like across the U.S.? A couple of interesting stats that came back. And again, it's just an AI conversation, so take it with a grain of salt. But this is saying from the Pew Research Center is about 60% of adults who've used AI at least occasionally. This is of U.S. adults. 60%. 35 to 40% adults use AI weekly or more. 14 to 19% of adults use AI daily. 45% employees using AI at work at least yearly, which is an odd thing to say. 23% weekly. So it's really interesting. It's still lower than I would expect across the U.S. if those stats are to be believed. We're talking about 20-ish%, 15 to 20% of adults using AI daily, which sounds quite low to me. So maybe there is time, Ben. Maybe there's room before it gets crazy.
Yeah. That statistic with workers, was that office workers?
That's a great question. It must not be. It just says employees.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say, I think that's statistics, right? Like, it's so easy to play with.
Yep.
Well, that's great. Gives us an idea of where things are settling now. It does beg the question on workers, office workers specifically, and how those numbers are coming in. So I'm sure, and as you mentioned earlier, interviewing various people at companies, even regulated companies, there seemed to be quite a bit of shadow AI going on. Like, oh, I've got my tools, and other departments, other people don't really know about these tools. So are you necessarily going to be able to capture that data?
That's right.
I'm also assuming that this is data that's being gathered by the big AI companies, so they can recognize usage and come up with some of this data for us too. How helpful!
Yes. Well, I threw a bunch of numbers out there, so there is that, and they could all be wrong, but I think it is less than I assumed. That's what I took away from it.
It's higher than I thought. So here we go. We meet on the middle.
Perfect. All right. Well, good conversation. Anything else before we close out?
Just be safe, Noah. Be safe.
Yes. Use AI wisely. Till next time.